Okay, real talk. Picture this. You're at a family dinner. You're sitting there minding your business, eating your rice, and your uncle, you know the one, leans over and goes, "So when are you buying a house? You know renting is just throwing money away, right?" And everyone nods. Your mom nods, your cousin nods, even the dog looks at you like you've made a terrible life decision. And here's the worst part. You actually started to believe it. Because that's the thing about financial advice that gets repeated enough times. It stops being advice. It becomes a fact, an unquestioned rule that apparently every generation just hands down like a family heirloom. Except this particular heirloom might actually be costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, I want to do something uncomfortable. I want to challenge something that almost every person you've ever respected financially has told you. And I want to do it with math, real math, the kind that doesn't care about your feelings or your uncle's opinion. Because what if renting for your entire life wasn't the financial death sentence everyone says it is? What if, in the right scenario, a lifetime renter could actually retire wealthier than their homeowner neighbor? And what if the people profiting most from you believing renting is throwing money away are the exact same people selling you mortgages? Let's get into it. First, let's be clear about one thing. The idea that renting is throwing money away is one of the most emotionally loaded, financially lazy arguments that exists. Here's the thing. Every single month, homeowners pay money and get nothing back either. Property taxes, gone. Maintenance, gone. Home insurance, gone. Mortgage interest in the first 10 years, almost entirely gone. According to bank rates in the first year of a typical 30-year mortgage, roughly 80 to 85% of every single payment you make goes straight to interest, not equity, interest. But nobody at the dinner table says, "Wow, you're throwing that interest money away," because it doesn't feel that way. It feels like you're building something. And that feeling is exactly what the myth feeds on. Look, I'm not here to tell you buying a house is always bad. It's not. For many people in many situations, buying a home is a genuinely great decision. But buying is always better than renting is not personal finance advice. It's a bumper sticker, and bumper stickers don't pay your bills. So let's kill this thing properly. Let's bring in our characters. Meet Alex and Jordan, two friends, same city, same income. Let's say they both earn $75,000 a year and they both have $80,000 saved up. Alex decides to buy, listens to the family, takes the plunge, puts that $80,000 down on a $400,000 house, 20% down. Classic, responsible, traditional. Jordan decides to rent. Same neighborhood, similar apartment, paying $1,800 a month in rent. Everyone at the dinner table thinks Alex made the smart move. Jordan's wasting money. Let's actually look at what happens over the next 30 years, because here's where it gets interesting. Alex's $400,000 house comes with a $320,000 mortgage at, let's say, 6.5% interest over 30 years. That's the rough average for a conventional 30-year mortgage in the current environment. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's mortgage calculator, that gives Alex a monthly principal and interest payment of about $2,022. But we're not done, not even close, because the mortgage payment is just the beginning. Property taxes on a $400,000 home average about 1.1% of the home value annually in the United States, according to the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. That's $4,400 a year, $367 a month. Homeowners insurance averages about $1,400 nationally. That's another $117 a month. And then there's maintenance. Financial planners consistently recommend budgeting between 1 and 2% of your home's value every year for maintenance and repairs. Let's be conservative and use 1%. On a $400,000 home, that's $4,000 a year, $333 a month. Add it all up, Alex's total monthly housing cost is roughly $2,022 plus $367 plus $117 plus $333. That's $2,839 a month. And that number only goes up as the home appreciates and property taxes rise with it. Now, let's look at Jordan. Jordan is paying $1,800 a month in rent, and here's the key question that nobody at the dinner table ever asks. What does Jordan do with the difference? Alex is spending $2,839 on housing. Jordan is spending $1,800. That's a difference of $1,039 every single month. Jordan takes that $1,039 and invests it every month into a simple index fund tracking the S&P 500. And Jordan also still has that original $80,000 that Alex put into a down payment. Jordan didn't burn it on a house. Jordan invested it too. Now, this is where I need you to really lean in because this is the part that changes everything. The S&P 500 has averaged approximately 10% annual returns over the past 90 years before inflation, or about 7% inflation adjusted. Those are the figures cited by investment researchers at Vanguard and consistently referenced across mainstream financial literature. We'll use 7% to be conservative and real. So let's run Jordan's numbers. $80,000 invested today at 7% annually over 30 years becomes $609,000. That's just the lump sum, just sitting there, compounding. Now add the $1,039 per month invested consistently at 7% for 30 years. Using a standard compound interest calculator, that monthly contribution grows to approximately $1.228 million. Add those together. After 30 years, Jordan's investment portfolio sits at roughly $1.837 million. Let that sink in for a second. And Jordan still hasn't bought a single property. Jordan is renting. Jordan is, according to every family dinner in history, throwing money away. And Jordan is sitting on close to $2 million. Now, let's check on Alex. Alex's house, assuming the long-term national home price appreciation of around 4% per year, which is the historical average cited by the Federal Housing Finance Administration, is now worth $1.395 million. That sounds incredible, right? A house bought for $400,000 is now worth $1.3 million. Everyone cheers. Great investment. But wait. Alex didn't actually make $1.395 million. Alex made the appreciation minus the costs. Let's be honest about what those were. Total mortgage payments over 30 years at $2,022 per month, $728,000. Of that, roughly $388,000 was interest, just gone, paid to the bank. Total property taxes over 30 years, adjusting for home values, approximately $165,000. Total homeowners insurance over 30 years, roughly $42,000. And total maintenance over 30 years at 1% of an appreciating asset, approximately $140,000. And then when Alex sells, there's realtor fees. The National Association of Realtors report average commission rates of around 5 to 6% on a $1.3 million home. That's up to $78,000 gone right at the sale. Added up, Alex spent approximately $953,000 in total costs on top of the original $80,000 down payment. Net position, $1.395 million house value minus $80,000 down payment minus $953,000 in total costs. Alex's true net gain is approximately $262,000. Jordan, nearly $2 million in liquid invested wealth. Look, I know what you're thinking. I know, but Alex has a house. And yes, Alex has a house. Jordan has to keep renting, and that's a real, valid concern we're going to get into. But on pure numbers, the math is not close. Now, before the comments go crazy, let me address the objections, because I know they're coming. Objection number 1, but home prices always go up. Real estate always appreciates. Here's the thing. They didn't say that in 2008. Between 2006 and 2012, U.S. home prices fell by an average of 33% nationally, according to the S&P CoreLogic Home Price Index. In some markets, like Phoenix and Las Vegas, prices dropped over 50%. Hundreds of thousands of homeowners found themselves underwater, owing more than their home was worth. Some lost everything. The stock market crashes, sure, but a diversified index fund investor doesn't get a foreclosure notice mailed to their door. Objection number 2. But leverage. Alex only put down $80,000 and controlled a $400,000 asset. True, and leverage is genuinely powerful. The appreciation Alex gets is on the full $400,000, not just the $80,000. That leverage argument is real, and it's one of the strongest cases for buying. But leverage cuts both ways. When prices drop, you lose on the full leveraged amount too. And that $320,000 mortgage isn't just leverage, it's a 30-year commitment to pay a bank regardless of what happens to your income, your health, your job, or the housing market. Objection number 3. But Jordan has to deal with rent increases. At least Alex has a fixed payment. This is actually fair. Rent does increase over time. The national average rent increase has been about 3 to 4% per year over the last decade. Let's say Jordan's rent goes from $1,800 to $3,200 over 30 years. That's real. It eats into the monthly investment surplus. But here's what also happens. Alex's property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs go up as the home appreciates too. Alex's real carrying costs in year 30 are significantly higher than they were in year 1. And Jordan's salary also increases over time. The monthly investment gap is compressed in later years, but Jordan still has that massive compounding base built in the early decades. Objection number 4. But what about the mortgage interest tax deduction?
This one is important, and a lot of people overestimate it. Since the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act doubled the standard deduction, the Tax Policy Center estimates that only about 13% of American taxpayers now itemize their deductions. For the other 87%, the mortgage interest deduction provides literally zero benefit because the standard deduction is already higher. So if you're banking your home ownership math on the tax deduction, check first whether you'd actually benefit from it. Okay, so here's where I want to get real with you about something deeper. The rent versus buy debate isn't really about math. The math, as you've just seen, genuinely can go either way depending on your situation. What the debate is actually about is discipline, behavior, and identity. The honest truth about the home ownership advantage is this. Buying a house forces you to build equity. It's involuntary savings. Every month when Alex makes that mortgage payment, a small portion goes toward principal, slowly, painfully, but consistently. Most people don't have the discipline to invest $1,039 a month every month for 30 years. Life happens. The car breaks down, the holiday beckons, the investment account gets raided. This is what researchers call forced savings, and it's cited by Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Shiller, yes, the same Shiller behind the Case-Shiller Index, as one of the genuine behavioral benefits of homeownership that pure math doesn't capture. The home ownership model works as wealth building not because the investment return on housing is superior, but because it removes the temptation to spend. So if you're the type of person who genuinely would invest the difference every single month without fail, the math in this video applies to you, and it's powerful. If you're the type of person who, hand on heart, knows you'd spend that extra $1,000 on eating out, streaming services, and slightly nicer cars, then buying a house might actually be your best savings vehicle. Not because it's a better investment, but because it removes the choice. Here's another part of this story nobody wants to talk about: geography. The rent versus buy equation is radically different depending on where you live. There's a metric used in real estate called the price-to-rent ratio. You calculate it by dividing the home's purchase price by the annual rent you'd pay for a comparable property. The general rule, supported by analysis from researchers at Fidelity Investments and the New York Times, is that if the ratio is below 15, buying makes more financial sense. Between 15 and 20, it's situation dependent. Above 20, renting and investing the difference is generally the stronger financial move. In San Francisco right now, the average price-to-rent ratio is around 30 to 40. In New York City, around 25 to 35. In Miami, around 28. In Austin, around 22. What those numbers are telling you is that in those cities, the purchase price of a home is so disconnected from what that same property rents for that buying is mathematically extremely expensive. Meanwhile, in cities like Cleveland, Detroit, Memphis, or Pittsburgh, price-to-rent ratios often sit between 10 and 14. In those markets, buying can make excellent sense. This is why advice like always buy is so dangerous. The answer is entirely dependent on where you're buying, when you're buying, and what you would actually do with the money you didn't spend on a down payment.
So let's talk about what you should actually do, because I'm not here to just turn you into a renter. I'm here to give you a framework. Step 1. Calculate your local price to rent ratio. Take the average home price in your target neighborhood, divide it by the annual rent for a similar property. If the number is above 20, run the math very carefully before buying. If it's below 15, the buy case becomes much more compelling. Step 2. Be brutally honest about your investment discipline. Would you actually invest the monthly difference if you rented? You have to be honest with yourself here. If the answer is no, the forced savings of homeownership might serve you better despite the inferior returns. Step 3. Stop treating your home as your primary investment vehicle. This is the big one. Whether you buy or rent, your wealth will be built primarily through investable assets, index funds, retirement accounts, diversified portfolios, not the house you live in. Homeowners who understand this use their home for what it genuinely is, a place to live with some appreciation upside. They don't rely on it as their retirement plan. Step 4. If you're going to buy for the long haul. The transaction costs of buying and selling a home are brutal. Realtor fees, closing costs, moving expenses, these typically add up to 8 to 10% of the home's value. You need years of appreciation just to break even on those costs. If you're not planning to stay for at least 7 to 10 years, the math almost always favors renting. And step 5, ignore what everyone else is doing. The keeping up with the Joneses pressure to buy a home because your peers are buying is one of the most financially destructive forces in personal finance. The Joneses, statistically speaking, are also drowning in debt they don't talk about on Instagram. Here's my final thought for you. Wealth is not the house you own. Wealth is not what other people think you own. Wealth is optionality. Wealth is options. It's waking up one day and having the freedom to say no to things that don't serve you. A renter with $2 million in an investment portfolio has more freedom than a homeowner with $1 million in equity trapped inside a property they can't easily access. Neither path is wrong if you execute it correctly, but one path has been so aggressively marketed to you, so deeply embedded in cultural identity, so connected to what it means to be a responsible adult that most people never question it. They just nod along at dinner tables and sign a 30-year obligation without ever running the numbers. You ran the numbers today. You saw that renting can build generational wealth. You saw that buying can too, under the right conditions. The difference between the people who actually build wealth and the people who just talk about it is not which of those paths they chose. It's whether they chose consciously or whether they just went along with what everyone else said was obvious. So the next time your uncle leans over at the dinner table, you don't have to argue. Just smile and keep investing. I'll see you in the next one.